There exists a man with such creativity that the mere thought of his name reduces teen pregnancy down by like 5%. He is, Takena, the best anime director ever. Okay, maybe he's not the greatest director ever, but he sure does love claymation. By the way, when I say director, I mean full creator. He had no other help in these films, or at least that's what my anime list said. I don't know how I found him, but I'm grateful I did. The majority of his creations are bloody clay short animations, the longest he's created being 7 minutes long. Despite that, the man's films suspend reality. You often finish watching each with your head scratching. The delayed pacing of each always leaves a different impression on you. Takena for me has become the embodiment of cheap and smart being good. His evolution as a clay animator fascinates me, so I thought I'd present just that. The best way to show Takena's evolution is by displaying his anthology of short films to you. Takena started off strong with a short called Bloody Night. This specific piece of art would be re-uploaded a year later with better quality. So let's start with what he got wrong off the bat. Did you see that? What you just saw was Takena attempting to make a dolly shot while the main character was moving. If you don't know, stop motion is done frame by frame with multiple pictures. You move the clay a bit, you take a picture, and you continue. If you don't take enough pictures or move the camera too much, the video comes off as choppy. When moving the character and camera, you may need to take twice as much pics as necessary when the camera isn't moving. You see, most claymation is done by having the camera be stationary. This is seen in ads and videos. And you know why it's stationary? Because keeping fluidity whilst having the camera and characters move is too complicated. Even when done, people often mask the creation in with the video zooming onto the set. It's never just authentic. What Takena was attempting is madness, and therefore he immediately earned my respect. It didn't work out, but for a 2006 video to even attempt that animation feat, and make it so you could still tell it was supposed to be a dolly shot is impressive. The story of the short is simple, but I'll go over it quick. Main character is trying to get home, but is attacked by Super Meat Boy. Oh yeah, by the way, Super Meat Boy makes an appearance, but now with the addition of a penis. What was Takena thinking? I don't know. I assure you it wasn't how to put a bump on his genitals. That's called AIDS. Takena's lighting was on point. It was your typical grunge setting successfully played as a clay animation. Even then, he made a good use of Microsoft Paint and smart lighting to make a muzzle flash for the gun of the police officer. I know I just praised the guy, but I have to say, Microsoft Paint blood was the only no-no. I think we have a general grasp of who we're dealing with here. A highly talented individual who uses cheap tricks to make visual effects. As far as we know, he's highly ambitious and creative. So let's take a quick look-see into other things he's created. Next up is Within the Bloody Woods. I don't think I can outright say it, but I think Dead World 1 would later be Takena's recreation of this series. This particular claymation is about a nameless blonde protagonist killing zombies. He struggles awkwardly, and the animation isn't all too fluid. I think around this time, Takena realized you have to be extra careful to claymate. You'll realize that the creation doesn't jump around, and it's relatively clearer. Once again, he uses lighting correctly, but must have realized now that light that bounces off paper often gives a neat practical effect. For him, it was probably giving a practical color grading technique to make a reddish or blackish scheme. This makes sense, the black in this video is pitch black, and the red in the beginning is super red. The only problem with this lighting was that it wasn't consistent. It would aim one way, and then in the next shot, it would aim the other way. This was also the first time he stepped into actual audio, and is the only time you'll hear him talk. At the beginning, the zombie's voice cuts in abruptly with no start, and the audio even peaked a couple of times. I think because of his bad experience editing and making audio with his voice, he was discouraged to ever try again. I mean, have you heard his English? Jesus! From then on, he sticked with silent films. The next one on his roster was called Bloody Date. Immediately in only 1 year, we can see the drastic improvement in Takena's quality. Let me show you a bit of his other ones, those being Within the Bloody Woods and Bloody Night, and then let me show you the animation on this. As you can see, there's clearly a much better fluid action between these. I think this is because Takena learned what cutting the fat was. Lots of films back in the days had shots that took too long. They started and the actors were still before they moved. And these videos still exist. That's not a joke. To best make his action seem tighter, he learned what cutting on the action meant, even if it was a close-up. Speaking of close-ups, I've seen Takena do exactly that. He often just does close-ups to the same movement before they happen. Take for example Bloody Date, Lemon Hero thing, even the zombie reveal at Dead World 1. Next up is Chainsaw Maid, which is by far his most popular video. This was nominated for the Anarchy Crystal as Best in International Animated Film, but he unfortunately lost. If he did win, maybe you'd already know Takena before I made this video. Something was rather odd now in his creations. Takena was testing out comedy within his horrors.
Jesus.
This video led to things like no littering, Pinky, and there was also something different, something that wasn't the same with Takena. Not his little snippet of jokes, but instead a whole new thing that made his creations popular, a happy ending. I think Takena for once wanted to incorporate a cathartic ending. He may have been done with having multiple series that he felt he owed parts to. You can tell by the quality why it would be Takena's most popular. It's because it's Takena at his best in quality. The only other thing that's crazy interesting as this is his latest completed creation, and maybe the end of Bloody Date. A website called Cartoon Brew made a short blog post on it. It was pretty cool, but I think it was hacked by an Asian Canadian. I mean, look at those dang A's! Needless to say, this was accepted by everyone as a super fun twist to the zombie apocalypse stories. Cool, next up is Pussycat. It's got nothing different except they really took that happy ending to the next step. And it's also really weird, so I'm gonna stop talking about it. Don't watch this one, ever. I feel like Takena liked dark humor, or he really didn't want to give up bad endings for the sake of horror. The next few stuff like Pinky, No Littering, Maid of the Dead, and has some lighter endings for something rather horrific. It's probably more likely that he enjoys dark humor, but because I find it funnier, Takena didn't want to give up bad endings. And here's for the lightest creation Takena has ever created. The Lemon Thing. It's kinda weird because Takena didn't upload the creation over to his channel, giving the impression that he only wants horror or gore influenced uncensored things on his main channel. But I realized something funny when doing this. This is an advertisement for a thing called the Lemon Home. Seriously though, when watching it my jaw dropped. I couldn't even believe this was the same guy as before. The sound design was ages better, and on the second episode there was a freeze frame that interested me. Like, how did he do this? How do you animate jumps? Does he use strings? It's not like the character model he's using, in this case a lemon, is getting cut out of frame for Takena to hold off camera. I found a video that showed this exact technique, but you needed to edit the video frame by frame. I doubted this the first time since editing movement like that would be a pain. But I couldn't believe it even more because this was Takena. It scared me now because Takena may have implemented the power of editing, something that would allow him to be the animator of my claymation dreams. But what if this was Lemon Home editing it? I didn't accept that because, well, did you see the lightning effect on episode 1? It wasn't really professional. After watching all this, I thought to myself, well, what's going on with Takena now? The problem with this question is that Takena's kinda private. Sure, Takena's given plenty of look-sees into his newest creation that'll be out soon, Chainsaw Bunny, but that's about it. The man's been chilling, and it makes sense. He has plenty of things he likes, like Jack Ketchum or Tribulation the band. I actually tried contacting him through email and even YouTube. Twitter? Yeah, I've got no response. But that makes sense. On his website, it led to a blog he does, but that was called SoNet, and I had no idea what to do afterwards. I checked his diary and put the latest post in 2013 through a translate, and it said a whole bunch of strange jargon. I'm not here to dig through everything Takena has ever done and publicize it, but I'm here to say that Takena has a life outside of claymation, and it's very unrelated to what we think of. However, there was something that is related to his works in claymation. Giampa. Now I'm probably the only person to ever dig this deep. There's a YouTuber who's called Game of Giampa. He likes to redo Takena's creation, but he said one thing in one of his video descriptions. On Giampa's Bloody Date 2 video, he says, "Takena-san, Thanks for your hospitality and patience. This gives the impression that Takena actually helped the students. Like came in to help. Sounds crazy? Well, maybe, but Giampa isn't a fan. You know how YouTubers have other YouTubers on the side of their channel? Well, Takena has that for someone called Cray. By the way, he was also on Takena's website. This is probably a friend of Takena's and it's not really that crazy. But what is that Cray is subscribed to Giampa. What's more is that if you follow his subscription dates, you'll get a time. It's not approximate, but this is only my guess. Before Cray subscribed to Giampa, he subscribed to a guy called Moaru0. Guess when he last uploaded? 6 years ago at 2011. Meaning that the earliest it's possible to subscribe to Giampa is 2011. The same year where Giampa made his first fan-made sequel to Takena's creation. After Giampa in the subscription of Cray's is a guy called Lee Hardcastle. Guess what he did? Made a fan-made sequel to Chainsaw Maid. When? Late 2010. This clearly means that Cray found Hardcastle's video a year later after he found Giampa. And it's not like Takena hasn't seen Hardcastle's video. He's made a direct blog post on his website talking about it. What I'm getting at is that Giampa and Takena must have met after Takena found the videos of Giampa making fan-made sequels. I'm assuming Takena helped Giampa teach his students the frustration of clay animation. Regardless of the case, it's cool that Takena has even acknowledged fans. I hope that from this video you can take away how Takena made thought-provoking pieces, and my explanations of what most likely happened while he was making said pieces. It just shows that you don't need money for people to see how talented you are. You can use cheap tricks to sell illusions and be the best amateur claymation anime director ever. Although I've still given him really low scores on Mal, I really do love his works to bits. I'm your host Beed, and I mentioned Takena's name 45 times if you count the latest technical use of his name. Teen pregnancy dropped by 225%. You're welcome, and I'll be waiting for that Nobel Peace Prize.